Daf Yomi Tractate Bava, page 91b, top of the page with the words Vikatani Hachovel Be'atzmo. Continuing the discussion from 91a at the bottom, where it's discussing the Mishnah and the Braita, where about causing humiliation to oneself or injuring oneself. It says, and it teaches with regard to one who injures himself, although it is not permitted for him to do so, he is nevertheless exempt from any sort of penalty, indicating that the prohibition is in effect, even with regard to humiliation. The Gemara answers, this is what Rabbi Akiva said to the man. It is not necessary to say with regard to humiliation, where it is permitted for a person to humiliate himself, that someone else who humiliated him is liable. But even with regard to injury, where it is not permitted for a person to injure himself, others who injured him are liable. The Gemara discusses whether it is permitted to injure oneself. And is a person not permitted to injure himself? But isn't it taught in a Braita? One might have thought that if one takes an oath to do evil to himself, and he did not do evil, he will be exempt from bringing an offering for having transgressed this oath. Therefore, the verse states, or if anyone swear clearly with his lips to do evil or to do good, Leviticus 5:4, which teaches that just as taking an oath to do good, for which one is liable, is referring to an optional activity, as opposed to taking an oath to perform a mitzvah, so too, taking an oath to do evil is referring to an optional activity, as opposed to taking an oath to transgress. I can therefore include within the category of one who is liable if he transgressed his oath, the person who takes an oath to do evil to himself and did not do evil. It is clear from this Braita that doing evil to oneself is permitted. The Gemara answers, Shmuel says, the ruling of the Braita is not referring to one who takes an oath to injure himself, but is stated with regard to one who takes an oath stating, I will sit in observance of a fast, which is permitted to do. Earlier in this same Braita, it states that one who takes an oath to do evil to others is not liable for violating this oath if he does not do evil, as it is prohibited to do evil to others. If the Braita is referring to one who takes an oath to fast, then in the corresponding situation, in the context of doing evil to others, the Braita must also then be referring to one who takes an oath to have others sit in observance of a fast. Not sure how you would force someone to observe a fast, but anyway, the Gemara asks that same thing. The Gemara asks, can one compel others to sit in observance of a fast? The Gemara answers yes. It is possible, as by preventing others from accessing food, he can impose a fast on them. For example, a situation where he can find them in a room. So you lock someone in a room with no food and water, you're making them fast. The Gemara questions the assertion that this is the case of the Braita, but isn't it taught in the Braita? What is considered taking an oath to do evil to others? It is considered such if one takes an oath stating, I will strike so-and-so, and I will injure his brain. Accordingly, in the corresponding situation of doing evil to oneself, it is necessary to explain that the Braita is referring to causing injury as well, and the inference that this is permitted remains. Rather, it must be that this is a dispute between Tanaim, as there is a Tana who says that it is not permitted for a person to injure himself, and there is a Tana who says that it is permitted for a person to injure himself. The Gemara asks, who is the Tana that you heard that says it is not permitted for a person to injure himself? If we say that it is this Tana, as it is the Tana taught in the Braita, the verse states, and surely your blood of your souls will I require, Genesis 9:5. And Rabbi Elazar says, from the hand of your souls, in other words, from yourself, I will require your blood, meaning one is liable even for taking his own life. That is not a correct inference. But perhaps killing is different. Rabbi Elazar holds that it is permitted to take one's own life. It cannot be inferred from here that he holds that one is liable for injuring himself. The Gemara suggests rather it is the opinion of this Tana, as it is taught in Braita, one may rend garments in anguish over one who died, and it is not considered the ways of the Amorites, but a Jewish custom. Rabbi Elazar says, I heard that one who rends his garments excessively over one who died is flogged for having transgressed the prohibition of do not destroy. See Deuteronomy 20:19. The Gemara suggests, and all the more so, it is the case that according to Rabbi Elazar, one who injures his body in anguish transgresses this prohibition. The Gemara rejects this suggestion, but perhaps garments are different in that tearing them is a loss that is irreversible, like that practice of Rabbi Yochanan, who would refer to his garments as my honor, and like that practice of Rav Chizda, who, when he would walk among thorns and shrubs, would raise his clothing despite the fact that his skin would get scratched by the thorns. He said, in explanation of his actions, this flesh will heal, but if scratched, but that garment will not heal if torn. Similarly, perhaps it is prohibited to rend one's garments, but it is permitted to injure oneself. Rather, it is this Tana, as it is taught in Braita. Rabbi Elazar HaKapar, the distinguished, said, what is the meaning when the verse states with regard to a Nazirite, and he shall atone for him for sinning by the soul? Numbers 6:11. And with which soul did this person sin by becoming a Nazirite? Rather, in that he afflicted himself by abstaining from wine, he is considered to have sinned with his own soul, and he must bring a sin offering for the Naziriteship itself for causing his body to suffer. And are these matters not inferred a fortiori? And just as this person who afflicted himself by abstaining only from wine is nevertheless called a sinner, one who afflicts himself by abstaining from everything through fasting or other acts of mortification, all the more so is he described as a sinner. Consequently, Rabbi Elazar HaKapar holds that one may not harm himself in any matter. The Mishnah teaches one who cuts down his own saplings, although it is not permitted for him to do so, is exempt from payment. Nevertheless, others who cut down his saplings are liable. Rabba bar Chana taught the following Braita before Rav. If one charged another, you killed my ox, or you cut down my saplings, and you are liable to pay for them, and the other responds, you told me to kill the ox, or you told me to cut down the saplings, he is exempt from paying. Rav said to him, if that is so, you let no creature exist. It is in his power to assert that because the other instructed him to cause damage, he is exempt. With this claim, anyone who causes damage can exempt himself. Rabba bar Chana said to Rav, shall I erase this Braita from the Braitot that I teach? Rav said to him, no, just interpret that your Braita is stated with regard to an ox that is ready to be killed. For example, it had gored and the owner decided to have it killed, and it is stated with regard to a tree that is ready to be cut down for whatever reason. For example, it was worshipped as part of an idolatrous rite, or it is situated in a manner that poses a danger to the public. In such a case, there is reason to believe that he was in fact instructed to cut it down. The Gemara asks, if that is so, that the owner of the ox or a tree acknowledges that it would be killed or cut down in any event, what claim is he stating to him, as there was no loss resulting from the action of the other? The Gemara answers, the case is where he said to him, I desire to perform this mitzvah of removing a danger or destroying idolatry by myself, and therefore I am demanding payment from you for having prevented me from doing so. This is, as it is taught in a Braita, the verse states with regard to one who slaughters an undomesticated animal or a bird, he shall pour out the blood thereof, and he shall cover it with dust. Leviticus 17:13. This teaches that the one who poured the blood, that is, the one who slaughtered, shall cover the blood. An incident occurred involving one who slaughtered an undomesticated animal or bird, and another preempted him and covered the blood. And Rabban Gamliel deemed him liable to give 10 golden coins to the one who slaughtered the animal, as he prevented him from performing the mitzvah. In connection with the prohibition against cutting down trees, the Gemara notes, Rav said with regard to a palm tree that still produces fruit in the amount of a kav, that it is prohibited to cut it down due to the prohibition of, when you shall besiege a city, you shall not destroy the trees. Deuteronomy 20:19. The Gemara raises an objection to the statement of Rav from what was taught in the Mishnah in Shvi'it 4:10. How much fruit must it be on an olive tree so that one may not cut it down? A quarter kav. Why did Rav say that it must produce a full kav? The Gemara answers, olive trees are different since they are significant. Therefore, even a quarter kav is valuable. Rav Chanina said, my son, Shivhat, Lo Shivchat Bari. My son Shivchat did not die for any reason other than he cut down a fig tree before its time. Shivchat. Wow, 710, 718, 720. Shivchat. Rav Chanina had a son named Shivchat. Interesting. He cut down a tree before its time. A fig tree before its time. Ravina said, but if the lumber was greater in monetary value than its fruits, it is permitted to chop it down, as this does not violate the prohibition against destroying a tree. Wow. Shivchat ben Chanina. Shivchat has a gematria value of 720. He cut his fig tree down before its time. Wow. Okay, part 1 ends here.